Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into something pretty surprising.
Yeah, what's that?
It's this fact. Latino immigrants in the U.S. often live longer than most other Americans.
Oh, right. Despite facing, poverty, often less access to healthcare, higher obesity rates sometimes.
Exactly. They show this remarkable longevity. It's kind of counterintuitive.
It really is. It's what experts call the Latino paradox. It definitely challenges a lot of our standard ideas about what makes people healthy and live long lives.
Absolutely. So, our mission in this deep dive is to really unpack this paradox. Is it real? Is it just like a statistical quirk?
And what are the factors behind it? The psychological ones, the physical ones.
Yeah, and also, why does this health advantage seem to fade away in later generations? We want to get into all of that.
It could offer some really interesting insights into health that go beyond just, doctors and money.
Okay, let's unpack this. So, defining the paradox first, what exactly is it?
Well, at its core, it's this observation that Latino immigrants, when they come to the U.S., tend to have longer lifespans than most other groups.
Even compared to native-born white and black Americans.
Yes, exactly. Even with those significant socioeconomic hurdles they often face.
The numbers are pretty stark, aren't they?
They really are. You look at Latino immigrant men, they average, about 81 years? And women around 84.
Wow. And compare that to...
Well, compared to the national averages, white men are around 75, white women about 80. Black men around 70, black women 77.
So it's a noticeable difference.
A huge difference. I mean, U.S. Asians do have slightly higher rates, but think about it. If Latino immigrants were their own country, longevity-wise, they'd be up there with places like Japan or Switzerland.
That's incredible. And it's not just about lifespan, right? It starts earlier.
It does, yeah. Even babies born to Latina immigrants, especially from Mexico, tend to be healthier. They have better survival rates in infancy than you might predict based on income alone.
Similar to middle-class white women, I read.
That's right. Similar healthy delivery rates. And this isn't just a U.S. thing either.
Oh.
Look at Mexico itself. Life expectancy is 75 years, pretty close to the U.S. average of 77. But they spend way, way less on healthcare, like 1/6 per person compared to the U.S.
In Costa Rica, too, isn't that one of those blue zones?
Exactly. Costa Rica is a blue zone, average lifespan of 81, lots of people living past 100. It strongly suggests something more than just national wealth or fancy healthcare systems is going on.
Okay, but I can hear the skeptics already. Are these statistics totally solid? What about those arguments about squishy statistics, like the salmon bias theory?
That's a fair question, and it does come up. The salmon bias idea is that maybe older, sicker immigrants go back home to die.
So they wouldn't show up in the U.S. death records, making the average lifespan look longer than it is.
Right. But researchers have looked into this, tracking death records, migration patterns, and all that. And the conclusion is, while it probably happens a little bit, it's not nearly enough to explain the whole paradox. The numbers returning are too small to skew the data that much.
Okay, so the salmon bias isn't the main driver. What about the flip side? The idea that maybe only the healthiest people migrate in the first place. The healthy migrant theory.
Now that one seems to have more legs. The theory is that migrating, especially from parts of Latin America, can be a really tough journey. Physically demanding, maybe limited food.
So it selects for people who are already pretty robust and determined.
Exactly. And there's evidence for this. Surveys of new legal immigrants show they tend to report being healthier, they smoke less, have lower obesity rates compared to both people born in the U.S. and people who stayed behind in their home countries.
Okay, so the healthy migrant effect is definitely part of the puzzle. But then you get these, curveball cases.
Like Cubans and Puerto Ricans?
Yeah. Cubans, who often couldn't easily go back home because of politics, and Puerto Ricans, who are U.S. citizens, so they don't have that same arduous migration journey.
Right. And historically, both those groups have still shown better mortality rates than many other American groups.
Which suggests?
It suggests that even if salmon bias and healthy migrant effects play some role, they can't be the whole story. There have to be other factors contributing to this longevity.
So, despite the skepticism, the paradox seems real. It points to health being about more than just money or access to doctors.
Exactly. It's a real phenomenon, and it forces us to look deeper.
All right, so if it's not just about wealth or healthcare, let's get into those other factors.
Yeah.
What about the psychological side of things?
Okay, yeah. One huge factor seems to be strong social ties.
The family structure.
Yeah, Latino culture often involves multi-generational households.
Yeah.
You've got built-in social groups, constant support, daily interaction. It's very different from, say, more individualistic setups.
I can see how that would combat loneliness, which we know is bad for health.
Absolutely. And older Latinos are less likely to end up in nursing homes. They often stay involved in the day-to-day life of the family. The classic image of the abuela watching the grandkids.
Keeping them active and engaged.
Exactly. It keeps them mentally alert, gives them a sense of purpose. It probably helps stave off mental decline. It's like this constant, informal social safety net right there in the home.
Makes sense. What else? I think bilingualism was mentioned.
Yes, that's another interesting one. Being bilingual seems to strengthen cognitive resources. It's like a workout for the brain.
So it helps with mental processing, especially later in life.
Potentially, yes. It might offer some protection against cognitive decline, maybe even delay dementia onset.
Okay. And then there's the role of faith, religion. That seems pretty central in many Latin American cultures.
Very central. And studies consistently link higher levels of religious faith with lower rates of certain mental health problems.
How does that work? Is it just the belief itself, or?
It's likely both the personal faith and the community aspect. Churches often act as really important social safety nets. They provide emotional support, sometimes even practical help, like food or assistance.
And this might connect to things like suicide rates.
It could be a factor, yeah. Suicide rates among Hispanics are significantly lower, like 7.5 per 100,000 in 2020, compared to almost 17 for non-Hispanic whites. That's a big difference, even if rates of depression itself might be similar between the groups. That community support might be a buffer.
Fascinating. Okay, let's switch to the physical factors. This obesity paradox piece is really intriguing.
It is, isn't it? The observation is that Latino immigrants tend to have higher rates of obesity than whites, but
But they don't always suffer the same negative health outcomes from it. How?
well, one leading theory is about fat distribution. Where the fat is stored matters.
Okay.
The idea is that in many Latino immigrants, fat tends to be stored more subcutaneously just under the skin. That's generally considered less dangerous than visceral fat, which is the fat that wraps around your vital organs.
So visceral fat is the really risky kind for heart disease, diabetes, stroke.
Exactly. And subcutaneous fat, while still fat, doesn't seem to carry the same level of risk. Plus, you have to consider the traditional diets.
Right, lots of whole foods.
Yeah, diets often rich in beans, rice, lean meats, fresh vegetables. That likely plays a protective role too, even with higher body weight sometimes.
So it's not just if you're obese, but maybe how you're obese, plus diet. What about activity levels?
That's another big one. Many immigrants work in jobs that are physically demanding. Think agriculture, construction.
So they're getting a lot more movement naturally in their day.
Definitely. More than someone sitting at a desk all day. This higher level of physical activity helps maintain better overall health, even for individuals who might be classified as obese. Research generally shows an active person with obesity is healthier than an inactive person with obesity.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, I read somewhere that maybe the single biggest factor explaining a huge chunk of the difference is smoking rates.
Yes, that's highlighted as potentially massive. Some estimates say lower smoking rates could account for up to 70% of the mortality gap between Latinos and whites.
70%, that's huge.
It is. Immigrants are just much less likely to smoke, or to have ever smoked, compared to native-born whites. The numbers are like 7.7% of Hispanic adults smoked in the past week versus nearly 13% of all U.S. adults.
Wow. So maybe the paradox isn't just about what Latino immigrants are doing right, but also avoiding something other groups are doing wrong.
That's a really important way to look at it. Avoiding things like high smoking rates, and perhaps also avoiding the so-called deaths of despair, opioids, excessive alcohol, suicide, which have hit other communities harder. But Latinos have comparatively sidestepped to a greater degree.
That really reframes it. And this resilience, it seems to hold up even under extreme stress, like during the pandemic.
It does seem that way. COVID-19 hit Latino communities incredibly hard, especially those in frontline jobs. Their life expectancy took a big hit, dropping about 3 years at the peak.
Which is tragic.
Absolutely tragic. But even with that drop, their overall longevity advantage compared to white Americans largely remained. It speaks to a kind of underlying resilience or a set of protective factors.
Okay, so we've built a strong case for the paradox being real, driven by this mix of social ties, culture, diet, activity, lower smoking. But then there's the catch.
The catch, yeah, it tends to fade.
This advantage diminishes sometimes quite significantly in later generations born in the US. What's going on there? What unravels the paradox?
It really seems to be a story of assimilation, but maybe assimilation into less healthy aspects of American life.
How so?
Well, you see major shifts. Diet is a big one. Those traditional whole food diets often get replaced by more processed foods, fast food, sugary drinks,
The standard American diet, basically.
pretty much. And meal patterns change, too. Maybe less emphasis on a big midday meal, more on a heavy dinner eaten late. All of this contributes to rising obesity rates across generations.
And does the type of obesity change too? Back to the fat distribution.
Yes, that's what the research suggests. In later generations, as obesity rates climb, there seems to be a shift away from that relatively safer subcutaneous fat towards the more dangerous visceral fat around the organs.
So the health risks associated with obesity become more pronounced,
Exactly. And it's not just diet and fat. Other behaviors change too.
like smoking.
Yeah, rates of smoking, drinking, and drug use tend to increase in U.S.-born Latinos compared to their immigrant parents or grandparents. They start to look more like the general U.S. population in those respects.
So by the time you get to the third generation, what does the health picture look like?
The picture changes quite a bit. You see higher rates of heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity. The life expectancy advantage shrinks, sometimes almost disappearing entirely. The paradox essentially unravels.
And is it just physical health, or do the psychological factors erode too?
It seems the psychological advantages weaken as well. That powerful sense of hope, purpose, resilience that many immigrants carry.
Mm.
Leaving everything behind for a better future, they can get worn down by the day-to-day economic pressures, the social stresses, maybe discrimination, the cultural tensions faced by generations born here.
Leading to more mental health challenges.
Potentially, yes. Rates of depression, anxiety, substance abuse tend to climb in later generations compared to the immigrant generation. And that strong, tight-knit family structure.
It probably loosens up a bit.
Often it does. As families assimilate, individuals might move away for jobs or education. That constant multi-generational support system isn't always there in the same way.
Wow. So it really brings home this takeaway. Health isn't just about having money or seeing a doctor. It's deeply tied into how you live, who you connect with, your culture, your lifestyle.
Absolutely. This whole deep dive into the Latino paradox really underscores that. Health is this incredibly complex interplay of lifestyle, social bonds, cultural habits, mental outlook. It's so much more than just biology or economics. The way the paradox appears and then fades across generations is a powerful illustration of that.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? If adopting or maybe losing certain cultural habits and ways of life can have such a big impact on longevity. What other recipes for long lives might different communities be overlooking or losing touch with in our fast-paced modern world?
Yeah, what could we all potentially learn from this paradox, not just about Latino health, but about how we structure our own lives, our communities, our connections?
Definitely something to ponder.